Hi chickens, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing like a two-parter type of thing where we're gonna make an amazing Italian meringue buttercream frosting with no butter, dairy-free, to go on top of the cake that we made in the first episode. And I'm gonna show you how to decorate a cake so that it has that really cute, vintagey kind of a vibe to it, like rococo, vintage, retro cake cuteness. Okay, let's get started. So let's start by making our frosting. This is a meringue-based frosting, which is different from an American buttercream. American buttercream is like butter or fat and powdered sugar and milk or heavy cream or something like that, and then whatever flavoring you have. It's a little bit too sweet for me. My boyfriend is always like, what is this icing? It's different from the regular icing. It's so good. And that's because it's American buttercream and it has like twice as much sugar in it, which is fine. Live your life. But we're gonna make this Italian meringue buttercream. It's a meringue-based buttercream, obviously, which means that we're gonna whip some egg whites and make a meringue, and then we're gonna add our fats into that. So it's so much easier than it sounds. And I know you're gonna be like, Lauren, we're making a syrup, I hate that, but it's fun. Oh, and there's fun gadgets. Oh, I'll get to that. I got excited, I remembered. Okay, so to make our frosting, we need egg whites. You can either use egg whites from a carton or separate eggs. Keep those yolks. You can make the passion fruit curd that I have a recipe for. You could salt the egg yolks. Like you can do so much with it. Please don't get rid of them. Or you can buy a box of boxed egg white. Okay, so here I have 150 grams of egg white that I'm gonna put in my mixer. And to that, I'm gonna add a pinch of citric acid. You could use cream of tartar. I like using this because one, it keeps those eggs really firm and buoyant, but it also kind of cuts into the sweetness. It's a tiny pinch if you're using citric acid. Like it's citric acid, it's very sour. 4 coffees. But it's gonna add another level, so it's not just like, I think a lot of the time when people don't love frosting, and like I grew up eating frosting with a spoon out of the container. Me and my dad would have like secret frosting stashes. He also drinks maple syrup. Like he knows not to, but he would if it was okay. So I think a lot of people don't like the sweetness, and this adds like a layer to it. So we're gonna be having like that little bit of tartness, like a little bit of salt, and the sweetness and the fat, so that it's a much more well-rounded like flavor than just like a punch you in the face, super sweet American buttercream. Okay, so we're gonna whip this baby until we have like medium peaks, okay? My mixer is broken, so I have to plug it in or else it just turns on. Ready? Look at this. While this is whipping, we're going to make our sugar syrup. So I'm gonna measure on my scale 250 grams of white sugar. This is fun. You could use brown sugar. You could use like half white and half coconut sugar and do something really crazy. So I'm gonna add 250 grams of sugar to my pot and 1/3 of a cup of water, and I'm gonna bring that to a boil while that mixes. I'm gonna bring that to a full boil while this mixes. Ready? Okay, our egg whites are at a medium stiff peak, and now we are bringing this to a boil. We have 2 goals: dissolve the sugar and bring it up to 212 degrees. I just spilled a heartbreaking amount of vanilla behind the mixer. It smells so good. Ooh, very sad. Okay, this is almost there. This is my favorite thing. Okay. We are almost there. Wow, so fast. Everything is dissolved. Take the temperature if you have a thermometer. But if you don't, just bring it to a rapid boil. And that's good. Okay, I hear it before I see it. So, mixer on. Okay, full blast. We're gonna pour it down the side in here. Okay. We're gonna mix this until it cools down. And it's gonna get really shiny and beautiful. So we're gonna mix this on high until it cools down. I'm using my metal bowl because it doesn't insulate heat as much as glass or ceramic. So if you're using a glass or ceramic bowl, it might take longer for it to cool down to the appropriate level because we don't want our fats to melt when we add them. So this is gonna keep running until this feels like medium warm. Okay, see how it's like incredible? This is marshmallow. Like, this is an Italian meringue that you could use to put on top of a pie or make a pavlova or something. Okay, this has cooled down. Here's what I do. We have 450 grams of fat. Because this is dairy-free, I'm doing like a 1-to-2 ratio. So I have 150 grams of shortening and 300 grams of vegan butter. And the reason I'm doing that, and the reason I'm talking so weird, and the reason I'm doing that is because vegan butter tends to have a lot more water in it than regular butter, like cow butter, which can kind of make your frosting like an oozy, wet mess. So the shortening is there to offer stability because it doesn't have any water in it. If it was all shortening, like you could tell it would coat your tongue. Like you can do it if you want, but I like the mixture of the two. You can do half and half. You can do like 1 and 2, whatever. I use my butter, like it's been out for about 20 minutes. I don't mind if it's not totally at room temperature because my bowl is still like feels a little bit warm at the bottom. And it's kind of gonna balance out. And here's my other trick. A lot of recipes will tell you to slowly add the piece of butter one at a time. We're not gonna do that. We're just gonna dump it in and let it go. And it's gonna look like a hot mess for a minute and then it's gonna fix itself. So let's do it. Mixer on. And now I'm just gonna add all of this in. Okay, and crank it. And you obviously want to stop it to scrape down the sides. And at this stage, I'm also gonna add a pinch of salt, like a good pinch. We're gonna let this mix for about 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna switch to the paddle attachment. And what that's gonna do is knock out any air bubbles that are in the frosting from all this whipping. And then it'll go on so much smoother. Okay, we're almost there. Now I'm gonna add my vanilla. A teaspoon, a tablespoon. How much do you like vanilla? Okay, this looks amazing. I'm just gonna show. Okay, so as you can see, we've got some pretty big air bubbles in here, which would mean air bubbles on your cake and in your frosting. So you can either whack at it with a spatula to knock them out, or use the paddle attachment for 5 minutes on low speed. Okay, now we're gonna add our color. I'm gonna use a gel paste. And what we're gonna do to make this a lot easier is we're just gonna use one color. I really like how that looks on a really heavily decorated cake, like with lots of frosting swirls all in one color, very chic. It's also super easy because if you make a mistake, you don't have to worry about like, how am I gonna get this like red frosting off, like red decorative frosting off of the white base frosting. That's not a concern. So we're gonna make ours purple because purple's the best. I'm just gonna add like a dot of color. Use whatever color you want. I'm using America color. America color. So I want a light color, so I'm just gonna put like 2 drops. Okay, and we're gonna let this go for a couple minutes just so that the color can really mix in there. Otherwise, you're gonna notice that there's like little dots. So we're just gonna let this mix for a while. Okay, so I have one of these. You might not, that's okay. I'm also gonna be using a cake board, which you can get at Bulk Barn or online. But if you don't use that, you can use a plate. It's easier if the plate is really flat without a high lip. And then you can tuck a couple of pieces of parchment paper just underneath the sides so that you don't get frosting all over your plate. When you're done frosting your cake, you can pop it in the fridge. The frosting will firm up and you'll be able to just pull those pieces of parchment out from underneath. And you'll have a perfect cake. And you'll have a perfect cake. Okay. It's beautiful. These cake layers were in my freezer. If you're making a cake, especially if you haven't had a lot of practice, I always recommend baking the cake the day before and then keeping it in the fridge wrapped up. Because it's gonna be, one, a lot easier to frost because it's cold, and once the fats in here feel the cold, they'll firm up. You also just won't get that tearing that you see a lot, and it's easier. If you have like baked the cake the day before, you're not as overwhelmed. So I'm going to take a little bit of my frosting, and it's gonna be my glue for cake number 1. I'm gonna show you a sneaky peek. This cake, when it came out the pan, a little chunk came off. Oh, let's cut this. We don't need to talk about my imperfections. I'm perfect. Okay. There's cake layer number 1. Hot tip number 1 is to use one of these. It lets you switch between different piping tips. We're just gonna use 2 piping tips for this cake, and there are 2 piping tips that come in if you get like a basic, learning how to, like a basic 4-pack of frosting tips. These are 100% gonna be in there. And these are couplings, and they cost like $2.99 for 4. They have them at my grocery store. Amazing. I'm gonna put this in my bag, and I'm gonna use the piping bag to do my middle frosting layer because I just want it to be like perfect, you know? And thick. Okay, I've got my piping bag, and I'm just gonna fill it up with frosting. Okay. And that way we can just like, see those air bubbles? I didn't quite mix it enough. So I'm just gonna keep, oops. Okay. And smooth. There you go. And then we'll take our other cake. I like to put the bottom side on the top because it's extra flat. Okay. Oh my God. So make sure it is lined up. This is an offset spatula. It's the best tool. You can get it online at a restaurant supply store. Most grocery stores have them now, or at least like hardware stores even that have a lot of kitchen supplies. So I'm just gonna smooth this initial layer of frosting that's kind of like squishing out. The other thing to make your cake flat is just, you can push on it, like it's a good sturdy cake. So we're gonna do a crumb coat. We're gonna put a really thin layer of frosting all over the cake and then chill it until the frosting is firm. And that's gonna keep all the crumbs stuck and also give like a strong base for our second layer of frosting to stick to. You can fix stuff. Like I've got a little hole in my cake there. Frosting don't care. Okay, so I'm just gonna go around and then pop on top. Okay. You just wanna make sure it's really covered. You're not like, you can still see the cake through. Okay, and then the top. Smooth it out. You can use a knife, but I really recommend that you get this. This costs $2. You're gonna start using it for everything. Okay, and then we're just gonna smooth the sides so that there's no excess frosting. And then this frosting, you don't really wanna put back in your bowl because it could have crumbs in it. So this is for a snack later. You can pop this in the fridge until the frosting, the crumbs, until the crumb coat is set, so it'll be firm like hard butter in the fridge. Okay, our cake is sufficiently chilled, and now we're gonna do the fancy layer, and then we'll do the decorations. Erin Jean McDowell said that frosting should be the texture of mayonnaise. I'm just gonna smooth the frosting across the top. And with frosting, you always want to go with like more is more, because what we're gonna do is load it up and then we'll use a tool like this to scrape it off, to smooth it out. So you want to put an excess of like more frosting than you think is fine, because we're gonna scrape it off to make it smooth. So I'm just coating this. Okay. And like the top needs more again. And like, to me, this is fine how it is. Like, you could serve this. Do like whoosh, a couple of whooshes with your frosting and you're solid. But we're not gonna do that. We're gonna make it fancy. Start by smoothing at the top. I'm just spinning it. The more cold it is, I find it easier to smooth. So if you're having a lot of difficulty, pop it in the fridge and let it go for like 20 minutes and then try again. Okay, so now I'm just holding this parallel to the cake and letting it squish a little bit off. And then we end up with this smooth, gorgeous cake, right? Let's see. And then anything that needs like a little extra love, I just go around with my knife, spatula. That looks really smooth. And now we're just gonna like tuck in the tops. We're gonna put a frosting line around the circumference. Around the outside of the cake, so it doesn't have to be like these smooth, rigid angles. We just want to smooth it out on top as much as possible. And to do that, really clean your spatula off. And then it just like glides. I can only give you so much advice before it becomes a practice thing, you know? So glide. Okay. You can also use this to do your top and just across the top. Okay. And if it doesn't look perfect, like an Instagram cake, it's because that doesn't exist and we're all using filters to make things look smooth. So I'm gonna use this paper towel and just clean up any of these bits that I've got on my cake circle here. I'm gonna pop this back in the fridge or in the freezer if you're short on time, and then we're gonna decorate this little buddy. And put the rest of the frosting in our bag, and the trick is to like fold it around your hand so it's protected. Okay. You could also put the frosting bag like into a cup. Just like plop it down and then fill it up if you're not too coordinated. Okay. And when you refill a frosting bag, there's gonna be an air bubble in between the layers. So I'm gonna squirt out the old stuff that we had. Okay, perfect. Gorgeous. We've got 2 piping tips here. These are not like a Wilton brand. These are called Kitchen Wise. This is an 8. This is a 14, but it's a leaf tip. And then a little jaggedy guy. I don't know what it's called, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna show you just what each one does, and like do a little test practice. Do it on some parchment. So we can do like shells, we can do squiggles, big shells, like all kinds of stuff. And I'm gonna show you the leaf tip, underused, under-respected. So you could make, like, these are usually used to make leaves like that, you know, little leaf, but we're gonna use it to make fabulous ruffles, you know? Looks stunning. Here is our cake. So I think I'm gonna do the bottom layer with this leaf tip. And all I'm gonna do is, same way with the 2 longer sides as the sides, and the top is the thinner little line. And I just go up and down very gently. And it's just a body thing where you'll figure out the angles. And if it looks like a little rough, that's just the aesthetic. We're going like frothy pastel madness. So I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do like a border like that, okay? So one thing that you can do to make it a little easier is take like a cookie cutter like this and just make a little indentation in the frosting like that. And then I'm gonna follow it tracing styles. Okay, so you can keep doing that all the way around. And then it'll be evenly spaced. I'm gonna do it a different way though. Okay, now I'm gonna do the top border, and I think we're gonna do a shell border. So all that means is I have my frosting pointing straight down. I'm gonna squeeze, keep squeezing, but less and pull. Squeeze and drag. Squeeze and drag, squeeze and drag. All the way around the cake. And the best part about using the same color is like, oh no, I messed up. Take our spatula, smooth it out, no harm, no foul. So it's a really great way to practice. I'm gonna switch back to the leaf tip and show you how I usually do it. And that's by counting. So I always do 1, 2, 3, 3.5 shells. So I just count and I go, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna switch back again. And we're gonna do some shells on this side. So you just go in between where things meet, squeeze a little bit more than on the top, and you'll get a bigger shell. Okay, and we just go around. Squeeze and drag. I think this looks bomb. So what I'm gonna do is add 8 little squirts of frosting on top, and then we'll put cherries on it because I think that'll be cute. So I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bomb. Put this here. I love maraschino cherries on cakes, like forget it. So before we put these on the cake, I'm just gonna dry them a little bit so you don't get like wet, drippy maraschino cherry juice everywhere. And then we'll pop them on top. This is giving me some Aunt Petunia vibes. Oh my God, that's it. Ta-da, that's your cake. Here she is in all her glory. I love it. I hope you make this cake. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's a long one, probably, I don't know. I don't edit. Oh my God, I wish I could cut into it. I'm not going to, sorry. You have a beautiful cake. You can pop this in the fridge and it'll last for a couple, like 2 or 3 days. It'll stay super fresh. Because we've locked all that moisture into our cake layers. Thank you so much for watching my channel. You can find me at @AllergyKidBakes on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more recipes and general tomfoolery. Thanks.